Hey, everybody, and welcome to a deep dive just for you, all about Mark Twain. We're going to be jumping into an episode of American History Tellers to explore his life and times.
Oh, fantastic.
And you know what's interesting about Mark Twain?
What's that?
He was born the same year Halley's Comet appeared,
Oh, wow.
1835.
Huh.
And get this, he died when it came back around 76 years later.
Really?
Yeah, he even predicted it.
No way.
Yeah, he said, I came in with Halley's Comet, and I expect to go out with it. A little spooky.
It really adds, a little mystique to the whole thing.
Right.
Yeah.
So he was very much a product of his time, but his work, continues to resonate with us even today.
Absolutely.
Which is what we're going to unpack today, right?
Yeah.
How Twain's personal journey kind of mirrored America's own transformation in the 19th century.
Right.
So we're going way beyond just the surface level
to
discover all these events and influences that shaped him into the literary giant that we know.
That's right. It's a fascinating journey.
It is.
From
those humble beginnings.
Humble beginnings, in Hannibal, Missouri.
Hannibal, Missouri, exactly.
To global icon.
To a global icon, that's right.
It's amazing.
All right, so let's start with those humble beginnings, right?
Right.
Born Samuel Clemens.
Samuel Clemens.
In Florida, Missouri.
Okay.
Not exactly a literary...
Not a hotbed of
a hotbed of anything, really.
Of literature, no.
But his family moved to Hannibal, Missouri when he was just a kid.
Right.
Which, as you know, became the setting for Tom Sawyer.
Exactly, yeah.
So, imagine young Sam Clemens just absorbing all the sights and sounds of life on the Mississippi.
The Mississippi River.
The Mississippi River, yeah.
What an influence. I mean, talk about inspiration.
Huge inspiration.
Your whole life, yeah.
His whole life, and, the stories that he heard as a child.
Oh, yeah.
Especially from, the enslaved people that he knew.
Right.
They weren't just entertainment. They were given a glimpse into...
Different perspectives.
Yeah, different perspectives.
Different ways of life, yeah.
And that's going to shape him later on.
Absolutely, yeah. Those early encounters with stories and the people telling those stories, it really had, I think, a profound impact on his development as a writer.
Totally.
And shaped, I think, his later exploration of race and social injustice as well.
For sure. And Twain's childhood wasn't all, sunshine and roses.
Right.
He experienced some significant loss early on.
Yes, he did.
Several siblings, and his father died.
Wow.
Which led to nightmares and sleepwalking.
Oh, wow.
So pretty heavy stuff for a young boy to have to process.
It makes you wonder how those experiences, of loss and grief might have influenced his work.
Yeah.
Maybe his sense of humor, which he often uses, to address very difficult subjects, was a way of coping with the darkness that he saw early on in life.
That's really a good point. And it's interesting you say that because, he also witnessed slavery firsthand. And while he admitted he wasn't initially aware of the inherent wrongness of it,
right,
he was haunted by some of these scenes of cruelty.
Yeah.
And those images stuck with him.
Yeah.
And, they kind of planted the seeds for his later condemnation of it, especially in Huckleberry Finn.
Exactly. His views on race and social justice, they evolved throughout his life, right?
They did.
Reflecting the changing landscape of America, right?
For sure.
He was a product of his time, but he also challenged those very norms.
Totally.
Through his writing.
Absolutely.
That's what makes him so interesting.
It does. So we have this young Sam Clemens absorbing all these experiences.
Right.
Leaves school at 11.
Yeah.
Works as a printer's apprentice, even contributes to his brother's newspaper.
He was already developing his craft.
Yeah.
Learning the power of language, experimenting with different forms of storytelling.
But what he wasn't content to stay put. So by his early 20s, he'd already worked as a typesetter in various cities.
Wow.
And even set off on that famous Mississippi River trip in 1857.
Right.
Initially dreaming of South American riches.
Oh, really?
Yeah, from trading cocoa plants.
Cocoa plants. Wow, I did not know that.
Yeah, it's a crazy story, but...
But fate and the river had other plans.
They did.
He abandoned those cocoa dreams.
Yeah.
And pursued a career that would forever shape his identity. Steamboat pilot.
Steamboat pilot.
That's the Twain we know, right?
That's the Twain we know, and he convinced this seasoned pilot, Horace Bixby, to take him on as an apprentice.
Wow.
Think about it. You have to memorize every twist and turn and landmark along 1,200 miles of river.
Yeah.
That dedication to detail.
That's incredible.
It foreshadows his approach to writing later on, I think.
It really does highlight his ability to master complex systems,
Yeah.
which would be both a blessing and a curse for him later on.
A blessing and a curse,
Yeah.
especially in those business ventures.
Especially in those business ventures, yeah.
But before we get to that,
Yeah.
we got to talk about the tragedy that struck in 1858.
Oh, yes.
A steamboat explosion that killed his younger brother, Henry.
Oh, gosh.
And the guilt and grief over that deeply affected Twain.
It's, it wasn't the first time he had experienced loss.
Right.
But, this was a turning point for him. I think it forced him to confront his own mortality and really grapple with the fragility of life.
Yeah.
And these themes would resurface again and again in his writing.
They do.
Often disguised beneath these layers of humor and satire.
So true.
It's incredible.
But he did. He eventually got his pilot's license.
Okay.
And, fell in love with life on the river. But then, bam, the Civil War starts in 1861.
Right.
Effectively ending his piloting career.
Talk about having to adapt, right?
Talk about adapting, right?
Yeah.
Being forced to adapt.
Big.
So he heads west with his brother, tries mining, ends up working as a reporter in Nevada.
It seems like he was constantly searching for his place in the world.
Constantly searching.
That restless spirit, that
Yeah.
constant yearning for something more,
Mm-hmm.
that is key to understanding Mark Twain. It
Right.
is, he wasn't content with just one path.
Oh, well.
And his experiences in the West, I think, would further shape his unique voice
Did you?
and worldview.
Yeah.
It's amazing
It is. It is.
how all of these things come together to create the Mark Twain that we know,
Absolutely.
the iconic figure.
Yeah.
It's really remarkable.
It is. It is.
Yeah.
It's amazing how he went from, those rough and tumble mining camps to becoming a literary star.
Yeah, right?
And his personal life takes this really interesting turn.
Oh, yeah.
He meets Olivia Langdon,
Olivia
a
Langdon.
woman from a wealthy religious family.
Okay. So
What opposites attract.
opposites attract. Yeah, how about that?
Right. And it's fascinating to think, how their differences might have actually fueled his creativity.
Oh, interesting.
Olivia, or Libby as she was known,
Go ahead.
really encouraged him to refine his writing
Mm-hmm.
and navigate that whole world of high society,
Right, which is
which is
far cry from
a far cry from those steamboat days.
Mississippi. Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. And she wasn't just a muse, though.
right.
She was his editor, his confidant,
Wow.
a major influence on his personal growth.
I see.
So they get married in 1870,
Okay.
and her father, Jervis Langdon, who was a staunch abolitionist,
Okay.
really embraced Twain,
Oh, wow.
helped him buy into a newspaper,
Really?
even set them up in a lavish home.
Wow. That's
That's some serious father-in-law support right there.
talk about
Mhm.
father-in-law goals right there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It makes you think about, Twain's complicated relationship with wealth.
Oh, absolutely.
He satirized the excesses of the Gilded Age,
Right.
yet he also desired that financial security.
Yeah.
And you got to remember, his own father struggled financially,
Right.
and that left a lasting impact on him.
That makes sense.
Yeah, so it's almost like he was grappling with these conflicting ideas
Mm.
about wealth and success.
Yeah.
And then right in the midst of this newfound stability,
Oh.
tragedy strikes again.
Oh no.
They lose their first son, Langdon, in infancy.
Oh, that's awful.
And it was devastating for both Twain and Libby.
Yeah.
And it really shook her faith profoundly.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's a reminder
It is.
that even amidst success and happiness,
Yeah.
life can deal you a really heartbreaking blow.
Yeah, you just never know what's going to happen.
You don't. And Twain would explore that theme of loss and mortality
Mm-hmm.
throughout his writing.
Of course.
He poured his grief into books like Roughing It,
Okay.
which recounts his Western adventures in the Gilded Age, this satirical novel
Right.
that perfectly captures the era's obsession with wealth and social climbing.
It's like he used humor to process
Yeah.
the darker aspects of
Of American society.
American society. Yeah.
Exactly.
It's a common thread, I think, in a lot of his work,
Absolutely.
using satire and humor as a way to expose hypocrisy
Yeah.
and confront these difficult truths.
Exactly. And around this time, he started building that famous Hartford mansion.
Oh, yeah.
It's a symbol of his success,
Right.
but it also reflects that internal conflict we talked about.
Oh, yeah.
Criticizing wealth while aspiring to it.
Yeah, it's that contradiction we see, in so many artists who achieve a certain level of fame and fortune.
Yeah,
They critique the very system they've become a part of.
exactly. And despite the grandeur of Hartford,
Right.
Twain's true creative haven was Quarry Farm
Quarry Farm.
in Elmira, New York.
Oh, okay.
It was his summer retreat. He could write surrounded by family and nature.
It's interesting, isn't it, how he needed both. He needed the stimulation of city life. But also that tranquility of a rural escape.
Totally.
They both fueled his creativity in different ways.
Totally. And it was at Quarry Farm that a story he heard changed his perspective on slavery and race forever.
Wow.
Mary Ann Cord. A formerly enslaved woman who worked as a cook there. Shared her harrowing experiences with Twain.
So hearing Mary Ann Cord's firsthand account of being separated from her children and her husband.
It deeply moved him.
It must have.
And it was a turning point in his understanding of the human cost of slavery.
Wow.
And he even published her story.
Really?
In the Atlantic Monthly.
Wow.
And paid her generously for it.
Good for him.
So it shows how much he valued her voice and her perspective.
Absolutely.
And it also directly influenced his portrayal of Jim.
Oh, wow.
The runaway slave in Huckleberry Finn.
So we see this shift in his writing from this point forward.
Totally.
He moves beyond simply satirizing Southern society, and he really grapples with the complexities of race and injustice in a much more profound way.
It's like he needed that personal connection, that direct experience of hearing someone's story to truly grasp the depths of the human suffering that was caused by slavery. And it's during this period that he creates Tom Sawyer. This lighthearted adventure, drawing on his childhood memories.
But Tom Sawyer introduces this character that hints at the masterpiece to come, right?
Yes.
Huckleberry Finn. There's a depth and rebelliousness in Huck that really sets him apart.
He does. And, Tom Sawyer was a success.
It was.
But it was Huck Finn that really cemented Twain's place in literary history.
For sure. 7 years in the making.
7 years.
This book was revolutionary.
It was.
He used authentic dialect, capturing the way people actually spoke, even if it went against, literary norms of the time.
It did. He wasn't afraid to push those boundaries.
No, he wasn't.
And he challenged readers to confront these really uncomfortable truths about American society.
Yeah.
Particularly the legacy of slavery and racism.
And boy, did it cause a stir.
It did.
People outraged by the language. The themes. The fact that Huck, a white boy with friends and helps a runaway slave.
The libraries banned it left and right.
I bet.
It's fascinating, though, how Twain, always a bit of a contrarian, actually embraced the controversy.
Of course he did.
He knew he created something that challenged the status quo.
And he even started his own publishing company.
He did.
To have more control over his work.
Which leads us to another interesting facet of Twain.
Okay.
Twain the businessman. Despite his literary genius.
Right.
He wasn't always the savviest when it came to money.
Oh, really?
He had this drive for wealth, This belief that he could make a fortune outside of writing. It's almost tragic in a way.
Yeah.
He's an incredible talent, but, his financial decisions, not always the best.
Not the best. Yeah. It seems that same restless energy, that fueled his writing also, led him down some less successful paths.
Yeah. And the prime example is the Page Compositor.
Okay.
This massive, complicated typesetting machine.
Oh, okay.
Twain poured thousands.
Wow.
Even tens of thousands of dollars into it.
Oh, my goodness.
Absolutely certain it would revolutionize the printing industry.
Right.
And make him rich.
Of course.
Classic case of unchecked ambition.
Classic. Yeah, he was so focused on this vision of the future, this technological marvel, that he neglected his writing.
Which, ironically, is what brought him wealth and success.
Yeah, the irony.
And sadly, it all came crashing down.
It did.
Late 1880s. Yeah. He's deep in debt. Largely due to the failure of the Page Compositor.
Wow.
Forced to leave that beautiful Hartford mansion.
Oh, no.
Seek refuge in Europe with his family.
It must have been so humbling
for
someone who achieved, such fame and fortune.
Absolutely.
To lose it all.
Imagine the weight of that, right?
Yeah, to know that you'd lost everything you worked for, it's heartbreaking.
It is heartbreaking, but here's the thing. Twain didn't give up.
Good.
Yeah, he could have easily wallowed in self-pity.
Right.
But instead, he decided to face his financial demons head on.
That's amazing. Yeah, it speaks volumes about his character.
It does.
That he had this deep sense of responsibility to repay his debts.
Even if it meant putting his pride aside.
Even if it meant putting his pride aside, exactly.
So he embarks on this grueling world tour at the age of 60.
Wow.
Performing night after night.
To packed audiences.
Packed audiences. And it wasn't just about the money. It was about reclaiming his dignity.
Right.
Honoring his commitments.
It's inspiring, yeah.
It really is. And, this tour also opened his eyes.
Yeah.
To the wider world. To the realities of colonialism.
Right.
The struggles of people.
Yeah.
In different cultures.
It fueled his growing disillusionment with American imperialism.
It did.
Which we see in his later writings and activism.
Absolutely. I mean, he championed women's suffrage.
Wow.
Spoke out against racism.
Incredible.
Condemned U.S. actions in the Philippines.
Yeah.
In no uncertain terms.
He was a man of conviction.
He was.
It's incredible.
He even wrote that scathing essay in 1901.
I know that one.
Calling out President McKinley.
Wow.
The British Prime Minister and the German Kaiser.
He held nothing back.
He held nothing back.
He was willing to risk his reputation to speak truth to power.
To speak truth to power, he was no longer just a humorist.
No.
He was a voice of dissent.
Absolutely.
Challenging the status quo.
Pushing people to really examine their own beliefs.
Their own beliefs. And through it all, personal tragedy continued to shadow him.
Yeah, of course. He lost his daughter Susie to meningitis in 1896.
That's right.
And then his beloved Libby.
In 1904.
In 1904.
Yeah, and his writing from this period really reflects this profound sense of loss and a stripping away of illusions.
It's heartbreaking to witness this shift in his work, Yeah. It's as if the world had lost its shine for him.
Yeah.
And he was really grappling with these harsh realities of life and the limits.
The limits.
Of human understanding.
But he kept writing.
He did.
Even as his health declined.
Worked on his autobiography.
His autobiography explored darker themes.
Right.
Never lost that sharp wit.
No, he didn't.
And just as he predicted, he died in 1910 as Halley's Comet returned to grace the sky.
It's like his life had come full circle.
It really is. Yeah. It really is.
Mark Twain's journey, I think, is a testament to the complexities of human nature,
It is.
He could be brilliant and flawed, humorous and deeply serious.
Yeah.
He made us laugh.
He did.
He made us think.
Yeah.
And he challenged us to confront uncomfortable truths about ourselves and about our society.
He really did. His life and work remind us that even in the face of adversity, resilience and the power of the human spirit can prevail.
Absolutely.
And he left behind a legacy that continues to inspire us.
It does.
To question, to challenge, to strive for a more just and equitable world.
So as you explore Mark Twain's works, consider this. How did his personal experiences, especially those moments of profound loss, shape his views on society and humanity?
That's a great question.
His later writings, I think, often overlooked, offer a glimpse into the depths of this remarkable and complex man.
That's a great point. I think we'll leave it there for today.
All right.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the life and times of Mark Twain.
It was my pleasure.
We'll see you next time.